A Clinical Translation and Commercialisation Medtech by MTPConnect. Round 2 is coming up, closing in October. So what I'll do is I'll just run through the guidelines, look at some of the things that I would recommend, and we'll look at the application form. So what I would normally do, if it's round 2, I would look at round 1 and see who they have funded in the past. This gives me a good chance to assess what they like to fund and I guess who the competition is. But they haven't actually announced who's received round 1. So what I recommend is when they do announce it, go and check for yourself to see what they like to fund and just see what's topical. So here we have the guidelines, and what I like to do is just look at the overview and look at the key objectives of the grant and just see whether my client or my application ticks those boxes. So I like to start with the answer in mind, not so much what I'm doing. Let's start with what their goals are and have a think about what they like to fund. And that's why I look at past recipients as well. And then the other thing that I do is I go straight to the merit criteria to see how they are assessing applications. And we can see here, this is the merit criteria here. So these are the 5 main areas, all equally assessed. Now what you will note is that in the EOI, these are not represented in there. So I think the selection criteria is actually on the final application form, and these in the EOI, the questions are spread across sort of these areas. So just keep this in mind, and then always start with the objectives that they want to focus on. So the first thing I would do is obviously see how much money they've got available and how much you can get up to. So you can get up to $1.5 million. So this is pretty good in terms of money that's out there. And let's see if anything jumps out that is the focus. So we've got $20 million for 4 years, and we don't know how much is per round or how much they've already given out. So there's not much we can glean from that. Obviously, it's part of the MRFF, which is good. This looks like a very good grant program going into the future. So certainly MedTech is going to be the place to be. Right, so let's just go on to what they're looking at. So we have a 3-stage process. So this is one of the longer programs I've seen. I've seen a couple of 2-stage, but 3-stage is really getting up there. So you need to think about your projects are not going to be happening for a year. So for my client, I've said, okay, let's look at a project that we're starting in July 2023, and that may not suit some people. So you've got to be just far enough along the TRL, but not too far along that you've already commercialised, or something that you don't want to already take to market within the next 12 months. So very niche in where you want to be for this. So let's scroll on and see the date. So it's only just opened, 7th of October. And here we are, late, early. You see, they're never committal in in what they want to do, but contracting late June. So let's go for 1st of July. So it's just easy to do a financial year in all of your planning, your budgeting, your cash flow, your Gantt charts, all that sort of thing. So let's have a look at some of the top level things that they want. So improve the health and well-being of Australians. Obviously, we're in medtech. We're going to be there. Accelerate the production and commercialisation of a medtech device within 24 months. So obviously, your project needs to happen within 24 months. And if your product comes to market at the end of that, that's going to look very favourably. And obviously, make Australian-made. Big tick there. Economic workforce. If you're going to be putting on jobs, that is a great thing as well. And then consider sustainable practices. It's probably only a minor part, but obviously you're going to be want to tick in that box. Obviously you'll know, if you're eligible or not, and then the co-contribution. So, most of the people are going to be, if you're in medtech, you're going to be up in this order of magnitude. So, keep in mind they're probably funding, I'm guessing, maybe 5 to 10. I didn't see if they're funding that the $20 million per year, per round. Obviously, this grant program can go over 2 years. So it's not very clear, but just ask for what you need to do. what are we in? Okay, so we're in hardware, some software. MedTech devices mainly in the hardware space anyway. Now, so you need to assess where you are. On the TRL, if you're in MedTech, you'll know what TRL means, but it's basically technology readiness. So you've done some R&D, you've proven it, and obviously you want to be starting somewhere here at the start of the project and then ending up somewhere along here towards the end of it. The closer you are to have a product on the market is going to be better for you. It just shows that you can have outcomes without needing further dollars. So be as close to here as possible, and then you've got very little risks in getting the product to market. Obviously, you've got to have the IP, meet the timing, pretty good. Partners on board. I haven't got much advice on the partner side of it. Normally, if you're a smaller company, you go and get some bigger partners on board. But if you're already a big company, I can't see why you'd have a partner on there as opposed to a contractor for this. Maybe if they're big researchers, but once again, you can contract out any of these universities or research institutions. So you've got to have the IP. Obviously, if you own it all outright, that's going to be better. So the good thing about this grant is that you can have your salaries included. So they've got the formula there. There's no actual financial budget, this application, to complete. So you just do something on Excel and you can work that out if you ask to come to the next round. So let's see what else. But unlike many other grants, there's very little for capital in this one here. So there's something like, there it is, yeah, $80,000 equipment. So mainly it's going to be in salaries, and then obviously keep in mind what is ineligible. So let's scroll on application process. Obviously it's online, but what I do is I take it offline and do it in Word. That way people can collaborate. You can do spell checks and grammar and do word counts, because this is all word counts on this application. And okay, so this is the selection criteria that I mentioned earlier. What I'll do is I'll have a look at the application form for EOI. So this is probably going to be more important as you go on in the process, but have a think about how you would tick off each of these, even if it's just a discussion about it. But showing that I guess the flavour of this is going to come out in the application form. Because you've only got like 200 words per section anyway to answer this. But overall, this is how you're going to be assessed. So it's, in simple terms, who are you, what have you done, what are you going to do, why are you believable? You answer those, that's the same as basically every other grant that's out there. So what I'll do now is I'll flick over to the application form and go through that assessment. Okay, so here's the application form that I've put into a Word version. Once again, this makes it very easy to collaborate. So project title, 20 words, it doesn't really matter on the project title, just make it sound a bit fancy, doesn't really matter. So, this is, you're going to commercialise or take the product from TRL4 to TRL5 and then put in some of the outcomes that you're going to have in there. Now the objectives. So refer back to some of those merit criteria and put that in there, or some of the objectives of the program, and highlight that. So maybe start with that structure. Is generally what I would do. So I start with what they've written and then say, we're going to do this through doing whatever. So it's going to be around commercialisation, health and wellbeing of Australians. If you can articulate the size of the problem or the size of the market or the prevalence of it, then you're going to tick that off. So proposed start date, as I mentioned, do 1st of July, do it for around 2 years. Probably what I would do, if you keep it nice and neat to 2 years, it's just easier for everything, for the Gantt chart, for the financials, and you can always finish it earlier if you want to. Work out how much money you need, but obviously start from the ground up and do the Excel spreadsheet. Even though you don't need to submit it, just do it from the Excel spreadsheet. put in all the staff names, put in their salaries, put in how much time on the project, and then put in their duration. So someone might be earning $100,000. They're only working on 2 months of the project, and on that 2 months, they're only working for 50% of their time. So just put that multiple through, and then put on the super and the uplift and what else you need to put in there. Here, just obviously where the funds are coming from. The closer, does it say in here? Yeah, so even if you haven't got the funds secured, say you've got it secured, the less risk you put into an application, the better. Once you get the funding, then you can go and get finance, then you can go and get equity, you can go and get another grant or wherever it may be. But as long as you say you've got the cash in the bank, it's just going to de-risk the whole thing. So funding, you've already got it. IP, it's all yours. De-risk as much of it as you can. You can put in your one-page summary here. Calibri font, no smaller than font 11. You can't just be cramming everything in there. I'm really not sure what I would put in this that's not really covered. Probably diagrams and photos, because that's the only thing you can't put in there. Photos of what it looks like. A graph, if that's important to you, of results. So you can draw attention to the success of your medtech device. So now we're on to what the medical need is. So prevalence, mortality. Look for the dollar value. What is it costing the Australian, government? What's it costing the economy in terms of the health disease? Find that number. If you can't find that number, then just estimate it in some manner. But if you can come up with a dollar figure, say this problem is costing Australian, $10 billion a year, and then there's other factors in, lost income or other derived impacts of this, health problem. Then you're going to put in your solution. Now, obviously, this is not a commercial product, so you've got to have some measure of your device and what it does, and whatever it indicates that it's going to help in this situation compared to what is already on the market or competitors from overseas. Here we put in what the competitors have, and of course your product is going to be better, faster, stronger, lighter, cheaper. Go and talk about all those things for how it is. Keep in mind, you've only got 150 words, so you can't really talk war and peace on this. And how it aligns to the modern manufacturing strategy and the National Manufacturing Priority Roadmap. So what I did here is just go and copy their text and say you will meet the modern manufacturing strategy in this key area because of this. You're in medtech, so you're meeting those priority areas anyway. It's really, if you're outside medtech, it's like, no, Australia doesn't want to make cars, for instance, or something of that nature. But medtech is one of the core priorities of the government. So just use their words and say, what you're doing. Okay, economic benefit. So what I like to do here is jobs. So obviously, maybe not so much jobs during the project. Obviously, the government is funding it, but it's really jobs after. So your project is going to create 10 jobs after, 10 FTE after the project, and you can quantify the value of that. And so that might be worth $1 million in income. You're going to talk about the revenue and profitability. So I would always go and do like a 5-year projection of revenue, COGS, costs, and then how much profit. So at the end of the 5 years, we're going to make $20 million in profit. That's going to be reinvested into R&D. And if you're even better, go and say that you're going to be into exports. Exports is always a big tick, and we're going to access the US market for 80% of it, and you can quantify that as well. And obviously, sovereign supply chain, you make it in Australia. Anything in the vertical nature of your raw materials, that also looks good as well. Okay, sustainability. You're going to make it from cardboard, packaging, and it's going to be whatever percent recycled. Give that a bit of a tick. I don't think that's going to be a big area for sustainability. Just one of those things they have to do. So then we're on to the TRL. You'll know where you are. Obviously, you don't want to be too far advanced. You don't want to be too far behind. So find that device or product where you're going to be, starting there, and then you're going to be, somewhere like that. So that's what I like to do. So for one I'm working on at the moment, we're in the sort of the 5 bracket, and we're going to end in probably the 8, maybe the 9. So the closer you can be to 9 and have a product on the market, that's not going to cost the government any more. There's no further risk. You don't want to have the scenario where, okay, you've done everything, but no one wants to buy it, or we can't actually sell it. And it's going to cost another $500,000 and another 2 years to get a commercial return. So what they want is to come and cut a ribbon and say, here is the device, it's on the market, it's saving lives, it's reducing the economic impact to Australian, and they want to cut that ribbon. So be that company. If you're not that company, that's who you are competing against, someone that's about to go and launch it into market. Okay, so just obviously, you'll know where you are with your product, where it sits in the medtech space. Describe the product. So what else have we got here? And obviously the drawing or product photograph of it. A few of the key features. And this comes back to the technical validation to the TRL level where you are at. So you need to have done some trials. You need to have some evidence. You need to either have another product that's similar or in a similar market doing a similar thing, so that you can draw some conclusions from that. Obviously, it needs to be safe in regards to medtech. You've got to cite some studies on that. Clinical use. This is probably going to be a big one. So I'd spend a bit of time on finding evidence that people want your product. So while your product might solve a health problem, if no one wants to buy it, then it's not going to be any good. Or if you've already got a product in the medtech arena and you're getting feedback from the clinician to say, hey, it would be great if your product did this, go get that evidence. And then this project is for that second product or that enhanced product. It needs to get the approvals, it needs to go through all the same process, but you've got evidence to show, hey, people using an existing product, but it'd be nice if it did this. That would be a great one. Stakeholder engagement. So once again, refer back to the clinicians, speak to the universities, anyone that's doing the research for you, any user groups would be great, any post-market surveillance would be great. Scalability, production cost. So if you need to go and spend 10 million, 100 million to go and build a production facility, not going to look so good as someone that can already make it. So that's who you're going to be up against. So once again, you've got to de-risk everything in this application and in this project. So if you've already got the manufacturing facility, big tick for you. So, de-risks it. Overcome the barriers to implementation or adoption. You don't want too many barriers. So, it's one of those, there's questions I ask you on your job application. What are your, what are your weaknesses? I'm too efficient. I'm too punctual. So you've got to have just enough that you can, of course, you can overcome it. And you've got a plan around it. So then we move on to the project plan. Pretty simple. Get out your Gantt chart, make it 5. So you're going to do some scoping in the beginning, some project planning. You do some evaluation in the middle. You do some trials. It's pretty simple. Just get that to maybe 5 dot points of the major outcomes. Now, proof of concept. Describe how your project will achieve commercial or proof of concept. So this is where you want to be close to that end of the TRL, almost at 9. So have that product ready to go. If not, find out how you can move that along, or find another product or project that you can do. If you need help with any of this, just hit me up, and we can schedule a consultation to go through what I think of where your project is. Indicate the major risks. Don't be like one company that I saw that said, we see no risks in this project. There are always risks. If not, make them up. So, what happens if you don't have enough money? What happens if you lose a key researcher? What happens if it takes longer? What happens if there's another COVID or a pandemic? What if there's supply issues? And then there's always a committee. There's always a management plan. There's always, project, reference groups and steering committees that can solve it. So just list maybe 10 of them. How many words? 150 words. You're not getting too many words. Maybe pick 5 of them. And so, lose a key researcher. We've got, a strong HR policy to go and find it, and, we're inundated by staff, or, haven't got access to IP, or we've got we've got an IP issue or we want to go to the US, or we've got a patent, IP management plan. So these are just tick boxes, really. Okay, IP strategy. Obviously, you want to have it, or have a good strategy for IP. Obviously, if you haven't got it, this is all going to be in public, so just make sure that you're compliant with your IP policy and your strategy. Make sure you're going to own it. Clinical development plan, so that's just the process. Basically, this whole thing is about clinical development. So just make sure you've got the endpoints, time frames, it's all manageable, you can do it all. Ideally, you've done this before. If you're in the medtech arena, generally you've done this before. If not, that's who you're competing against. So just keep in mind who you're competing against for this sort of dollars. And then obviously, where are you going to take this product? Quantify the size of it. What's the addressable market size? And then how much are you going to do? And that's why I do the 5-year plan of, year 1, we're going to sell 100 units, year 2, 1,000, 10,000, and then in year 5, we're going to go to the US, and we're going to, tick another few boxes, or we're going to go to Asia, wherever your market may be. Once again, only 150 words. So the business model, who you're going to sell it to, how much they're going to pay for it, how they're going to buy it, and it comes back to the financial model again. I've got a good financial model. If you need a good financial model, I can send you through one that I've got. And it basically just talks about what value is created in the project, what revenue over 5 years created, the profitability over the 5 years, and then it puts in the other cogs. What is the value with and without the project is not one that I do as well, and that takes into account your existing P&L. That models your existing cogs, your existing overhead costs, and then you can play with those numbers to sort of project forward and get all that out. Team, actually, obviously got a good team. Beef up their resume if required. Obviously, your team or your project manager has done this extensively before, and they're supported by a good project management team and procedures. So great project manager, great lead researcher, or whatever is the terminology that you use. Diversity, you have a strong diverse policy, and you might talk about who you've already got in the team. If not, you're going to go and Google a team diversity policy, and you're going to regurgitate that in there and put that in there. Resources and infrastructure. So you've obviously got the building, you've got the manufacturing, you've got the lab set up. If not, you can't get the cost for that. So if you don't have that, you've got to find the costs. It's a separate project, and or you're competing against someone that already has it. So keep that in mind. And obviously you get the CEO to tick it off, and that is about it. So I hope that has helped you with the application form. If you need assistance with whether you think you should apply, or how to make your application more competitive, or someone to read it that's not stuck in the detail, or someone to rewrite it that hasn't got 5 different people or 10 different people adding in their own thoughts onto it and make it clear and succinct, then hit me up. But yeah, good luck with it.